Irony, as you probably know, is a figure of speech where someone says the opposite of what they really mean or intend. It usually involves a contradiction, a sharp contrast. Irony turns a situation on its head. Christmas 2015 is full of ironies. The irony this Christmas includes the deep longing and the great expectation felt by millions who could barely await the arrival of the latest Star Wars movie. They were camped out for hours, some overnight, just so they could experience this wonderful cinematic event. Now, let me just say, it won't be long before I add my $14 to the hundreds of millions of dollars this thing has grossed in just its first week. But I suspect nobody camped outside this chapel tonight to get in here and get a good seat. How ironic that if we have to be in church 45 minutes early at Christmas, we complain about it. Star Wars fans wear almost anything. Outrageous costumes, lightsabers being swooshed in the air to make that strange whoo. That wasn't quite as good as I wanted it to be. How ironic that we don't even open our mouths to sing in church, even Christmas carols, even on Christmas Eve. The culture is inundated right now with Star Wars memorabilia, even well before the movie opened. Star Wars ice cream, Star Wars toasters, Star Wars capes and shirts, shoes and masks. Hundreds of thousands want to be part of this experience. How ironic that most of us don't even put a cross up in our homes anymore, much less our dorm rooms. Then, of course, there are the ironies of our own personal lives this Christmas. How many of us come here tonight having just read the riot act to some family member because they are not cooperating with the Christmas plan? Or the simple irony that most of us have spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on gifts that others will soon forget or did not even need in the first place. But there's one more irony at play in Christmas 2015. We just heard the gospel story of a pregnant, very young woman named Mary, who was unwed, who was exiled from her home, forced by the occupying powers to leave her home. She had nothing of her own except that life growing inside of her that she loved with love beyond all telling. But even that life was threatened. And when the time came for her to go into labor, she had nowhere to go. Nowhere. She was willing to risk her life for this child, and no one would take her in. One after another turned her away. And we tell this story that is so heartwarming, and our hearts are so filled with sympathy and compassion for this young, pregnant woman who had no place. But what is ironic is that we fail to make the connection that heartwarming story is happening all over the world tonight to millions of human beings, and that story is anything but heartwarming for them. 120 pregnant women a month are giving birth in refugee camps. They also love their children with a love beyond all telling. They also are risking their lives, and they're also turned away from one nation after another, from one state after another, because there was no room for them in the inn. Ironic? Indeed. I share these simple ironies with you not because I want to be some sort of Grinch, but in the hopes that these ironies could help us see something of what's underneath these coincidences and get into the mystery that Christmas bears to us tonight. That there's something here worth noting that may not be as entertaining as Star Wars, but it certainly has more to do with our own true happiness, our joy, the meaning and the purpose of our lives. And in the end, I don't know anything that matters more than that. And I might add, it is the irony of all these ironies that in the end helps us to see the one who comes with no dazzle and who stubbornly resists all that, and who just sets up his tent among us to do his work. He sets up his tent among us and tries his best to change the world, one person at a time. That we can and perhaps can start small. Small. Maybe heeding the call of our Holy Father and our Archbishop, that parishes across the earth can begin to adopt one of these families. Communities everywhere can take them in and give them a place, or at least help that happen in a way that's safe for all. Christmas will not let us forget that love insists on coming even in the most minuscule of ways, even in a tiny infant. That there are all around us and within us the gentle, undetectable stirring of this first love. Christmas 2015 is full of ironies. And you know, in the midst of them all, the world has managed to birth herself a Savior. In the midst of the Star Wars mania this year, in the midst of the troubles in our family, in the midst of 1 million displaced people tonight who have no home, in the midst of all those ironies, the world has managed to birth herself a Savior. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore